Hey guys, Mike here, the Detroit Borg, with a look at the new Samsung Galaxy Tab 4 7-inch, which is now thinner, lighter, more compact, with better specs than the Tab 3 from last year. This is also joined by a new 8.0 and 10.1 Tab 4. Now I'm looking at the Wi-Fi only version, white, but you can get this in black with a cellular version. So there's a cellular version that adds either 3G or LTE, and it adds GSM voice, so you could get one with an earpiece and use it as a handset. Now in terms of specs, we have a 7-inch display, WXGA resolution, which is 1280 by 800. That's a big improvement over the 1080 by 600 display from last year. So this is good for 216 pixels per inch. Now all the Tab 4s have the same screen resolution, so the smaller you go, the higher the pixel density. We also have a 1.2 gigahertz quad-core processor. That's an improvement over the dual-core from last year, which was also clocked at 1.2 gigahertz. Now we have the same camera specs, 3 megapixel fixed focus camera, which is good for 720p HD video. Then we have a 1.3 megapixel front camera. We also have GPS and GLONASS built in. Now in terms of Wi-Fi, this supports Wi-Fi up to 802.11n. And we have a 4,000 milliamp hour battery. And we have 1.5 gigs of RAM. Again, an improvement over the 1 gig of RAM from last year. And we're running Android 4.4.2, a big improvement over 4.1, which the Tab 3 7-inch was stuck at last year. This also gets a new and improved version of TouchWiz, which brings it up to the design spec of the Galaxy S5. All right, so let's just pop the box, slide it out. There we go, Galaxy Tab 4. So as you can see here, we also have multi-user mode and multi-window mode, which I'll explore in this video. Let's go ahead and pop this out of its tray here. There we go. Got a little plastic back panel, which is kind of stuck to the tray. All right, so let's go ahead and peel off the front plastic. There you go. You have your 7-inch screen, which is now more edge-to-edge than before. You have much less bezel than the Tab 3 from last year, so it's a lot more compact. Now, before we take a close look at the tablet, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the accessories they've included here. So we have a USB 2.0 cable, micro USB 2.0, so no 3.0 in this case. We also have our wall adapter, Samsung branded, which has a nice matte finish, just like the tablet itself, no longer that glossy finish. Now we have our paperwork, which includes a quick start guide. We also have an incentive to register your Galaxy device with Samsung. We have instructions on how to upgrade the software. And then we have a very large book for health, safety, and warranty information, which is in multiple languages. Now before we take a close look at the hardware design, let's go ahead and boot this up. Just going to press and hold the power button, which is placed just above the volume button on the right-hand side. All right, so let's go and take a look at the design of our tablet. As you can see, it can be used in landscape or portrait orientation. It does seem to be designed primarily for landscape orientation because that is where the IR blaster is located. But as you can see, it's now a much more one-handable tablet because they've shrunken down the bezels considerably. The design is now catching up with Samsung's other higher-end tablets like the Tab Pros. So you can see it's got a nice form factor overall. The display looks pretty bright and vivid, nice and colorful. Certainly not as vibrant as the OLED display on the GS5, and we'll talk more about the display a bit later. Now toward the bottom you have our new Android controls here. So these pretty much catch up with the Tab Pros as well as the Galaxy S5. So we have a recent apps button as opposed to a menu button like we did with the Tab 3. We have our home button and back button, and as you can see here, they are not backlit like they are on the higher end tablets. Up top, it's pretty simple. Just a 1.3 megapixel front-facing VGA camera, so a fairly mediocre camera. Again, there is no ambient light sensor, and there is also no LED notification light. Now, as you can see here, the glass is surrounded by a plastic bezel with that chrome finish. Now, if you look at the edges, you can see that the back panel pretty much wraps around the edge to give you more of a unibody feel to it. It's a simpler design, feels a little more robust, doesn't look as elegant maybe as the one with the faux stitching like you get with the Tab or the 10.1 2014 edition or the Note 3. It's a much simpler design, but you also have that sort of leather finish with that grain to it, which gives you a nice grippable texture. It's not as slippery feeling as the glossy texture and maybe a little more durable than the glossy finish. So you can see down here we have a micro USB 2.0 port. Doesn't have USB 3.0 like the other higher end Samsung tablets. We also have a speaker grill. This is just a mono speaker. You can see it's pretty tiny. There is a bump out here to prevent you from muffling the speaker when you lay it flat on the table. Now up top we have our camera module, which is pretty basic. This is a 3.15 megapixel camera module with a fixed focus lens, so no autofocusing here, and of course there is no LED light. It does record video at 720p at 30 frames per second. Now along the right hand edge or the top side of the tablet in landscape orientation, you'll find a microphone, your sleep wake button, as well as our volume rocker, which are plastic and color matched to the body. We also have our IR LED blaster for controlling AV equipment, and they do give you an included app, the Watch On app for controlling those devices. And then we have a micro SD card slot, which is hidden behind this door. This supports only 32 gig cards, while the other Tab 4s support 64 gig cards. Now along the top side, we have this little bump out for the headphone jack, and as you can see here, the camera module is fairly flush to the back. All right, so let's take a look at the user interface. This is Android 4.4 with an updated version of TouchWiz. So as you can see, we have that unlock effect we've seen with the GS5. Now, the interface is pretty familiar here. This is very similar to the Tab Pros I reviewed previously. So you can pinch in and out to see all of your home screens. You can select which one you want to be your home screen. You can add new home screens, and you can rearrange them. Now, what you don't have here is the My Magazine feature we get with the Tab Pros, which I also reviewed previously. So this is a much simpler tablet. It's kind of bare bones in terms of its features. So we have our drop-down notification shade. As you can see up here, we have our quick access toggles, which we can move through just by swiping left and right. So we have our brightness slider, which does not include auto because we don't have an ambient light sensor. We also have our volume control right there. We have our notifications down here, which are expandable if they do apply here. And you can tap on them to launch the app that pushed the notification. Now you can also go up here to jump to all your toggles as opposed to sliding between them, and you can go up here to edit them. So you can edit exactly what appears in your notification panel, and you can see that everything is included except airplane mode. So for example, you can't drag and drop it up here because you're limited to a certain number of them, and you have to remove one of them in order to add another one. But of course, you can also rearrange them and that sort of thing. And you can also reset it back to default. Now, as you can see down here, you can also tap any one of these icons so you get right to the page you want, or you can use this little slider gesture. Now, if you tap and hold, you can get to your home screen editor. So this allows you to set your wallpapers, add apps and widgets, create folders, or add new pages. So for example, if we go to apps and widgets, it just takes you to your app drawer, which also includes your widgets. You can also go to your downloaded apps. So you can see I've just downloaded Twitter just recently, and we're going to talk more about the app drawer in just a minute. You can also tap and hold here to create a folder. So if we go to create a folder, let's go ahead and test one. So you just create a folder, name it, you can reposition it, and you can add apps to it. Let me go here. So you can see you can move it around to other home screens. In fact, when you bring up the editor, you can see you have your home screen previews down here. So you can drag and drop to any home screen you prefer, like so. And we can drag and drop apps to it either from the home screen or from the app drawer. So let's go to apps here. You can drag and drop my files here, like so, and move it around. Now, if you're done with that, you can take it up here and remove it. So if you don't want to have that, you can also tap and hold here to add another page. Now, if you tap and hold one of the apps on the home screen, you get to the option to create a new folder, go to app information, or remove the app. You can't uninstall it from the home screen. You have to do that from the app drawer. If you go up to app info, brings you to the settings panel, which shows you a lot about this app. You can turn off notifications, you can force stop it, that sort of thing. So all of that is here. Now, if we go to the app drawer, you see we have the standard array of Samsung apps. So we see S-Voice, Samsung's App Store, we have the Memo app, email, calendaring. We also have My Files. We have the onboard music and video player, the world clock and calculator. And we have Google's voice search. We have Google's Gmail, Google+, Play Music, Play Movies and TV, Play Books, Newsstand, Games. We also have Hangouts. We have Chrome. Photos, which is our photo gallery, which allows us to sync our photos to our Google account. We have the Google Maps app, of course, YouTube, the Play Store, Google Drive, Google Settings. We have the third-party app, Dropbox, as well as Handcom Viewer, which allows us to view Office documents such as Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. So if those documents were created in those programs, you can use this app to open them and edit them. So this is very nice to have, especially on a tablet. And we also have the Watch On app, which again allows us to control our AV equipment just by selecting our service provider and adding our gadgets. So let's go ahead and get started here. I've already input the fact that my service provider is Comcast in my region, and I can go ahead and add a device here. So I haven't added my TV yet, so I have my Samsung Smart TV. Click Next. So as you can see, I have two tabs right now, On TV and On Demand. So On TV is basically my live programming that's available right now. So for example, if I want to watch The Internship, you can see it's broadcasting right now. I can click Watch on TV. It will change the channel to that, or change the TV to that channel, and I can start watching it right now. Now, the app drawer has a lot of new settings here. So we have Edit. This allows us to create new folders or uninstall apps or hide apps. So for example, if I tap and hold this Twitter app, I have the option to uninstall the app, go to app information, create a new page for the app, or create a folder. So if I go to create a folder, you can see it will create a folder for me right in the app drawer. Now it does create a new page in the app drawer just for foldered items. So if I click save, there we go. I can now drag and drop this folder to my home screen if I prefer as well, or I can just cancel that. Now I can't just drag and drop items between my app drawer pages. I actually have to go up to edit in order to change that. So let's go again up here to edit, and now I can start dragging and dropping items to that folder. Alternatively, I can go right to the folder. I can go to plus to add the apps. But there you go. I can basically just check the apps I want to add to the app folder. So for example, like these, I can do and click done, and it's added them to that folder. Now, if I go up here to edit, I can also uninstall or disable apps again just by checking certain ones I want to uninstall. Now, some of them cannot be uninstalled. So as you can see here, the Watch On app is included. It can't be removed, as well as the standard or the integrated Samsung apps, such as the Calendar app and Gallery app and Camera app. You can't uninstall those. But you can see the World Clock can be removed. In this case, you have to disable that app. But if I go up to that Twitter app, which I added myself or downloaded right here, I have the option to uninstall it, but a lot of these apps cannot be uninstalled. Now, in terms of our recent apps tree, you can launch any one of them just by tapping on them. You can also swipe them out of the way to close them, or you can close all, or you can go to your task manager to get to more settings. This takes you to the settings panel for active applications, downloaded apps, RAM manager, so you can see how much RAM is being used, as well as storage. Because this used to be a menu button, we can now tap and hold on that button to get to menu. Now, when you're in the home screen, it just takes you to the home screen editor. But if you're in an app such as Chrome right here, let's tap and hold that again. There you go, it takes you to your menu settings. Now, the home button has a few functions here. So the home button, if you press it once, takes you to the home screen. If you double press it, it takes you to S Voice. What's the weather like tomorrow in Rochester Hills, Michigan?
Clouds, thunder, and rain are all forecast for Wednesday.
Open the YouTube app.
Open YouTube.
Now, if you want to get to Google now, just tap and hold the home button. Okay, Google. What's the weather like tomorrow in Rochester Hills, Michigan?
Tomorrow's forecast for Rochester Hills is 57 degrees with a chance of storm.
Okay, Google. Open the YouTube app.
Opening app.
Now, if you tap and hold the back button, it brings up our multi-window mode. Now, if you tap and hold the power button, it gets you to power off, airplane mode, or restart. You can also mute it. As you can see here, there is no vibration motor to enable. Now, with volume, just tap the volume button. You can click here to get to more volume controls. You can adjust notification volume, media, and system volume independently. Now let's get back to our quick settings toggle. So as you can see here, this reveals some of the available features. Now there's not a lot going on here. So you can see we have Wi-Fi, location services, our audio controls, screen rotation lock, Bluetooth, multi-windowing mode, which we'll explore, syncing, smart stay, power saving mode, blocking mode, and airplane mode. Now you can quickly access any one of these features just by tapping and holding on them. It takes you right to the control panel. Now, I think we're all pretty familiar with smart stay. Basically, it uses the camera to monitor the presence of your eyes. So it knows if you're looking at the display or not. It will allow the display to go to sleep if you're not looking at it and will prevent it from going to sleep if you are. It's fairly reliable if you have good lighting, but otherwise it's a feature I prefer to turn off just because it's a little too unpredictable. We also have power saving mode, so if you enable this, it basically dials back performance of both the screen and processing power. And if you want more controls here, just go to that setting panel here. So you can dial back CPU performance as well as shorten the screen timeout, and it will also dim the display. Now we also have blocking mode, which is a do not disturb feature, which you can just enable, so it stops you from receiving notifications unless they're important. So for example, if I toggle it on, I can select always, so we'll turn off notifications or turn off alarms or both. You just have to select which ones you want, or you can select specific times of day. So if you want this to turn off when you go to bed at night, so for example, let's go with 12 a.m. set. Click set, and you're good. Now you can also quickly access your settings panel right from the drop-down notification shade. So as you can see, we have this tabbed viewer for connections, device, controls, general, and you can search. So if you don't want to dig through the menus, you can just search. So for example, if I want to change my wallpaper, let's see if I can just search for it. There we go, wallpaper, including the icon for wallpapers. Takes you right to that point in the control panel, and you can select your home screen, lock screen, or home and lock screens. I find this very useful. So under connections, we have Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, which you can toggle on and off, airplane mode, data usage, location services, so you can see which apps are reporting your location or using your location, more networks, and of course you can toggle this off. You can see your VPN settings or your printing settings, so you can go right to your printers right there. So this, of course, is Android 4.4, so you do have integrated printing, which is very nice. We have nearby devices, so we can see all devices that are sharing a network. So that would include DLNA equipped devices, and you can also share this device on that network so other devices can have access to this device's media content. Now under device, we have our sound control. So for example, we can disable the touch sound effects, which are on by default. So if you don't like that constant blooping sound or that nature UX sound that Samsung seems to put everywhere still, you also have display settings. So we can change our brightness, the screen timeout settings. We can enable the daydream feature for screensaver mode. You can also disable the show battery percentage, but that's on by default. We have our multi-window mode, which you can turn on and off. Now I'll show you multi-window mode later. Now we have lock screen settings here. Now the lock screen, you can turn on something called shortcuts. And if you tap on the shortcut icon here, you can actually edit what those shortcuts are. So for example, these are the default ones. I can add a new one here. So for example, if I like Chrome, and I can also remove one just by tapping and holding on it and deleting it. So for example, if I don't want the WebKit browser, I can remove it and I can continue adding another app which I find useful, such as Gmail. So now when I go to my lock screen, I now have quick access to apps I tend to use a lot, such as the camera app. And I can also swipe on any one of them to launch directly into that app. Now we can also jump to our wallpapers. Again, we can select home screen, lock screen, or home and lock screen. We have our font settings. We can change our font style as well as our font sizes. We have notification panel settings, which I showed you earlier. Also under notification, you can disable the brightness and volume controls if you don't want those to appear there. We have accessibility settings, lots and lots of settings here. We have our blocking mode settings as well. Under controls, we have our language and input settings, so you can change your keyboard. So if you want to add your own Google keyboard, as I prefer, as opposed to the Samsung keyboard, you can do so here, or you can manage that here. We have our palm motion features. Now with the screen capture feature, you just swipe the edge of your palm against the screen and it does a little screen grab. And in fact, it does pop up for you in the notification panel. You can click right on it to get to it. You can open it up in whatever app you prefer. Now we also have mute pause. So if you want to mute media, all you have to do is put your hand over the screen and it mutes it for you. Now under general, we have our accounts here, so we can add new email accounts, new Gmail accounts, Facebook, Twitter, LDAP, etc. We have our cloud accounts, which include Samsung, as well as our Dropbox account, backup and reset settings, date and time, accessory settings, application manager, so we can see all of our running apps, downloaded apps, apps on the SD card. We also have our default application settings, which you can modify. Battery, so we can see our battery percentage. We can see our battery usage data. We have our power saving mode, which you can toggle on and off. Storage, so you can see what's taking up all your storage. You can see there's not a lot of storage left, and I haven't installed much. We have security settings, and we have about device. Now in terms of the multi-window mode, if you have it enabled, all you have to do to access it is swipe in from the right edge of the tablet. This works in landscape or portrait orientation. You can see all the apps that support multi-windowing, which is most of them. So for example, you can launch YouTube. You just drag and drop it to the screen. It launches the app. Now you can launch another app side by side. So for example, if you want our Chrome browser. Hey guys, Mike here, the Detroit board with a look at two devices. So I can play back one of my videos in full screen on the left-hand side and continue watching my video while searching the web. So I can go ahead and go to The Verge. Brings up a text box that floats and moves around. So again, let me bring that here. So I can move that around here so I can keep it out of the way. So there we go. I can pinch and zoom while watching video on the left-hand side. Now I can resize the window like so. So if you want to see your video a bit larger, you can do it that way. You can also tap on the circle to get to settings. So you can switch the sides here, like so. So switch from left hand to right hand side. And again, same story here. You can also copy one item from one window to the other window using this utility. And you also have the option to just close one of the windows, like so. Now, of course, if you want to close this window, the controls have to be on this side. If I want to close this window, the controls have to be on that side. So basically what I have to do here is make sure that the window is active here. So you can see this window is surrounded in blue. Now when I tap the blue icon, it's now giving me controls for that window. So again, same story here. Tap that there. Now, if you look at the bottom of that multi-window tray, you have several options here. So you can go to Edit. This allows you to edit what apps appear here. So as you can see, they don't include all the apps, but you can add as many as you want, or you can remove as many as you want. So you just tap and hold it, drag and drop it like so. Now, I'm just going to use the included Memo app to show off the Samsung keyboard, but the Memo app is pretty decent here. So you can see we can record a voice memo. This is a test of the voice recording memo feature. So you can stop it, you can pause it to resume it, and click play to play it back.
This is a test of the voice recording memo feature.
And you can delete it if you want. You can also add images either from the camera or your image gallery and that sort of thing. So let's get to that keyboard. So the keyboard is pretty familiar again. So you can see we have a full QWERTY keyboard with a directional D-pad here, which is shrunken down for the 7-inch tablet. You get larger keys with a larger tablet. So you have your number keys up here. You can go to your settings down here. Takes you to your settings for the keyboard. If you tap and hold on it, it gets you quick access to the voice keyboard, the text input keyboard, the copy and paste function, as well as different keyboard sizes. So if you want to change your keyboard from the floating keyboard to the QWERTY keyboard, you can do that as well. Notice there is no split keyboard like you get with the larger tablet. Now there is a swipe keyboard in here, but you have to go to settings to activate it. So let's go right here to continuous input. If you click that, bring up our keyboard here. You can see it works pretty well. And of course we have our voice keyboard. This is a test of the voice keyboard, which is provided by Google, period. Now, as I said, we also have handwriting recognition built in here. So all we have to do is start writing. We can use our finger or stylus if we prefer. You can see it's not perfect. You can click back here. It recognizes letters as well as punctuation. Now overall, I'm pretty impressed by this display. It's not a terribly bright display, but that pixel density is pretty decent. At 216 ppi, it's not going to challenge something like the iPad mini with Retina display or even the Nexus 7, but it's fairly decent, especially at this price point. So it's perfect for e-reading. So if you do a lot of reading with this tablet, you want sharp text, so it's not as fatiguing on the eye, and I think this tablet definitely pulls it off well. Now let's take a look at the camera app. Again, a pretty mediocre camera, 3.2 megapixels, good for 720p video, does not have autofocusing, but you can pinch in and out to zoom, which is just digital cropping. Now you have your photo mode. You can take a photo. You can also select your mode here from the variety of options such as night mode, sports shot, panorama, sound and shot, beauty face, and auto. Now you can go to settings down here, gets you to all your settings, not a lot here. So we have our photo size, you can see 3.2 is maximum. We have our video settings, you can see 720p is the only option. And then we have other settings such as location tags. You can select the volume key to operate as the zoom key. You have your timer options, white balance, brightness, guidelines, contextual file naming, and the same thing for the still camera. So we also have our metering settings, which you can change from center weighted to matrix or spot metering. Now, because we do not have autofocus, we do not have tap to focus here. Now we can jump here to get to our settings, like so. We can also drag out this little drawer here to get to some of our quick settings, such as our exposure levels, which we can modify manually, like so. You can also tap and hold on one of these icons and rearrange them if you prefer. Now, of course, we also have filters, not a lot of them, so we have negative, sepia, grayscale, or no effect. There you go. So I actually just have 3 filters. I can also quickly switch between the rear-facing and front-facing camera, like so. And then you can also activate the video camera mode by swiping that little toggle here. Get you to video camera. And again, you can start recording video. Now, you can't shoot photos while recording video like you can with Samsung's more powerful hardware. You can click pause. You can resume recording or stop it. Now in terms of our Geekbench scores, you can see the Nexus 7 definitely blows away the Tab 4. And that's thanks to a more powerful quad-core processor clocked at 1.5 gigahertz. Also has 2 gigs of RAM versus 1.5 gigs on the Tab 4. Alright guys, so let's talk about the strengths and weaknesses of the Tab 4 as I see it. So the Tab 4 7-inch model starts off at $199, which is pretty affordable. Although the Nexus 7 isn't too far behind it at $229, which gives you higher end processing power, a higher resolution display, and better cameras. But pricing tends to drop a lot on the Tab 4. You can pick these up pretty cheaply when they go on sale, and they're very popular worldwide and readily available. Now this is also running the latest version of Android 4.4.2 with an updated version of TouchWiz, which isn't too bloated this time. They've kind of stripped it down to only the really useful features. It's also fairly compact, lightweight, and portable, making it one of the most compact 7-inch tablets out there. Now in terms of weaknesses, the biggest one is performance, especially when you're running TouchWiz. Now it doesn't have terrible internal specs, but it doesn't have the specs it needs to really keep up with the demands of TouchWiz. So while they've stripped down TouchWiz, it's still there. It's not as optimized as the stock experience on the Nexus 7, which flies on the Nexus 7 tablet. So you can definitely notice the speed difference when using the Nexus 7 versus the Tab 4. Now the display is also kind of dim, so it's not great outdoors. It has a fairly mediocre camera and has a really small tinny rear-facing speaker, which isn't as good as the stereo speaker on the Nexus 7 or on the stereo speakers on the iPad mini with Retina display. But in the end, this is a much better tablet than the Tab 3 7-inch from last year. So if the prices come down to match where that went, then I definitely think this is one to consider for a lot of people. So that's going to do for me in this video. I will be covering the Tab 8.0 and 10.1 soon, so stay tuned for that, and I'll see you again in the next video. Alright guys, so here I am in my foyer, once again with Zoe and Chloe. Chloe's on the right here. So I'm using the rear-facing camera, which is 3.15 megapixels. So it's a pretty mediocre camera. Good for 720p HD video. I do not have tap to focus, but I can zoom in while recording. I also do not have tap to change the exposure. It just does it automatically. Of course, no stabilization or any features like that. And again, it's recording in 720p, so that means I'm going to be upscaling it to 1080p for this video, so that may confuse a few people here. But let's go ahead and check out the performance of the camera outdoors.